I'd now like to call to the stage a great Australian who, without his assistance tonight, would not have been possible, Mr. Clive Palmer.
Thank you. We meet tonight in a city known for its strength, among people known for their courage. And we find our country in need of both strength and courage. And courage is one of the rarest things in political life or public life. Melissa McCann, Pierre Corey, John Leake, Peter McCullum, Craig Kelly are all examples of real courage. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, John. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Peter. They have defined for all of us here tonight what we must do in our daily lives. That is to have courage of our convictions, regardless of the cost, each day to care about our country and to love our fellow citizens, not to put our head in the sand and ignore what's happening around us. It's far easier to make war than it is to make peace. To fight for peace is to fight for our freedom and our rights. We have to be vigilant and forever free. It is a day-by-day, persistent, year-in and year-out fight. It's akin to breathing, for it's true that our freedom is a breath of life to our communities. The death rate in this country has increased by 80% this year. 20,000 more Australians have died in the last 12 months than the previous 12 months. That's equivalent to one full jumbo jet crashing every week. You'd think you'd hear about it, wouldn't you? You'd think the press would make something of it, but they don't. Sadly, most people don't make it to hospital. Many just die or have a lonely death at home. Why are so many Australians dying? Why is the death rate has increased by 18% and the birth rate has declined by 15%? The cycle of life is down 33% a year. You know, at the beginning of the early stages, when hydroxychloroquine offered the best hope for mankind, I sat over dinner with Matthias Cormann, the then Australian Finance Minister in Perth, and said to him that something had to be done to protect and defend our families, that decisive action was needed. The Australian government was slow to act. There were so many bureaucratic hurdles put in front of us. John Skerritt was then instructed by Cabinet to provide me and our companies with all the approvals we needed to import into Australia large quantities of hydroxychloroquine to protect all Australians. He did make all the authorization to provide us with all the required exemptions. Donald Trump and the US government were cornering the world market for hydroxychloroquine, and at that time the British government had banned the export of hydroxychloroquine. We needed a lot of money, and we had to beat the US and Europe in the race for hydroxychloroquine. I personally provided all the money, but we needed more than that. We needed people that would be devoted and single-minded, and I called upon my daughter Emily and my future son-in-law Declan, who together scoured the world for 6 months and brought back 37 million doses of hydroxychloroquine to Australia. Enough for all Australians to stop the pandemic and to save our lives. The US government, with all their resources, only secured 31 million doses. The 37 million doses of hydroxychloroquine were imported into Australia and placed on the government stockpile. We paid for it all. But then once Pfizer and the lobbyists heard about it, the hydroxychloroquine was destroyed by Scott Morrison, Greg Hunt, both who must bear, with John Skerritt and the TGA, the responsibility for increased deaths and the maiming of Australians over the last 12 months. Over 80% of deaths in hospital could have been avoided if Australia had early treatment with hydroxychloroquine. Over 9,000 Australian lives could have been saved. That was the view of Dr. Salenko before he died. You know, Emily and Declan's work ensured that there was no shortage, as the government was later to claim. The tens of millions of dollars that I spent were needlessly wasted. Emily and Declan's efforts were needlessly wasted. I want to say tonight that I'm proud of my daughter, Emily. I'm proud of Declan. And I'm proud of what they tried to do for all Australians. The fact that their efforts were squashed by Pfizer and the rest of them, including John Skerritt and the corrupt TGA, doesn't mean that Emily and Declan's efforts were in vain. Their actions stand in contrast with the evil we're now facing. At that time, I donated $1 million to the Royal Brisbane Hospitals to fund a trial for hydroxychloroquine so it could be approved in Australia for another use against the virus. That $1 million disappeared when the TGA stopped the trial in Brisbane. We need direct action. Direct action. Congratulations to Melissa McCann for doing all that she can to hold those responsible to account. We have to show compassion, love and forgiveness to Australians who are suffering from vaccine injuries, who may have had different views from mine and yours, but who now need our love and support. We have to unite this country. Most of all, we have to protect our rights to be fully informed, our rights to free speech and our freedom. Ivermectin saved my life. I had double pneumonia that I caught battling Western Australian Premier Mark McGowan in the federal court in Sydney. He breathed on me. I returned to Queensland only to catch the Delta strain of COVID. I was admitted to hospital in the Gold Coast. There I sat in a room with two doctors who told me I only had 5 hours left to live. That my only chance was to take remdesivir and be placed on a ventilator. I said I was not going to do it. They said, I had no other option and they'd have to make me do it to save my life. Then the cavalry arrived. The hospital only had one security guard. Nearly 100 media wanted to find out why Clive was in hospital. They invaded the hospital, opening every room, door, nook and cranny, looking for me. But I could see them coming from the COVID treatment room. Then Florence Nightingale, a nurse, came in and said she'd come to hide me, to take me away to parts of the hospital that were then under construction, that then was being renovated. I picked up my mobile phone and I called Anna, my wife. If I only had 5 hours left to live, I wanted to spend it with her. She collected me from the back of the hospital. The media covered my departure. Then 5 minutes into my journey, my phone rang. It was a doctor who wanted to treat me. Within 45 minutes, I was receiving, among other things, large doses of ivermectin. One day later, I was feeling better. 4 days later, my oxygen was up to 97% saturation, and there was no more COVID. I realised then, as has been said, that here on earth, we have to make God's work our own. At the last election, we spent $100 million to inform the Australian public. Today, over 4 million Australians are not vaccinated. That's $25 for each person. It's the best money I've ever invested. There'll soon be an election in New South Wales. for the state parliament, and our party is banned from participating in the election by the electoral laws. I want to thank Craig Kelly for the leadership, the courage of his conviction. A conviction that he has shown for the commitment he had to his oath of office when he was a federal member of parliament to protect and defend Australia and the Australian Constitution. Craig Kelly will stand as independent with a team of candidates for election to the upper house of the New South Wales Parliament at the next election. He can join his voice with United Australia Party Senator Babbitt, who fights every day in Canberra to expose the great crime that's been perpetrated on our community. Craig will need all our support and goodwill to win. If you can help, volunteer tomorrow afternoon from our website to give him the help he needs to be elected to protect and defend the people of New South Wales. When I lie my head tonight on my pillow, I'll say a prayer for our country, for all Australians, and for our deliverance from this nightmare. Thank you to our friends from across the Pacific. God bless you and your loved ones. God bless each and every one tonight, here tonight. God bless Australia. God bless freedom. Let freedom reign. Let freedom reign. Let freedom reign in Sydney. Let freedom reign in the hearts of little children. Let freedom reign in Victoria with Dan Andrews. Let freedom reign on all Australians. Let freedom reign.